Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Today's phrase is to spend a fortune. And when we use fortune in this kind of phrase, it talks about the amount of money that we're spending. Oh, don't buy that. You'll spend a fortune. My friend John spent a fortune buying a new house and then decided that he didn't like it. She spends a fortune every week on cosmetics. I don't know how she can afford it. Now, the good thing about this phrase, spending a fortune, is that it's very versatile and you can use it in different ways with different verbs. So to spend a fortune is to spend, when you buy something, you spend money. To spend a fortune. But you can also make a fortune. Oh, I think he's very well paid. He makes a fortune in his job. You also could say John's selling his house, and if he does, he'll make a fortune. Another way you can use the word fortune is to talk about the cost. Oh, I'm not buying that. That will cost me a fortune. You'll notice as well that all of these examples, they're all singular. Fortune. To make a fortune, to spend a fortune, to cost a fortune. And oh, he will spend a small fortune if he's doing that. So these are the main ones: to spend a fortune, to make a fortune, to have a small fortune in the bank. And of course, the word fortune itself has many different meanings in English. So we're just talking about how it translates as money. In our news these days, we hear that English people spend a fortune to go to university. And it's quite controversial because they have all of this money, they spend it to go, but only in England. Isn't that quite bizarre? For example, in England, it costs a fortune to go to university because you have to pay for tuition fees. However, if you live north of the border in Scotland, tuition is free for people who live there. So we're in a situation where we have a north-south divide. Not only with universities, but also with medicine. If you're ill in England, you pay around £10 for a medicine. It's a small fortune, but north of the border, you don't pay for medicine. It's the same in the south. If you go for an eye test in England, you pay £10–15. But in other parts of the UK, it's completely free. There's a lot of controversy about this because it means that wealth is not evenly distributed. Because wealth is not evenly distributed, it means that there's different pricing structures. And not only for universities, healthcare like medicine, there's other things as well, especially when it comes to benefits for older people. I've never heard this phrase used in the negative. Maybe someone might say in response to spending a fortune, they might say, well, I don't have a fortune to spend. You might hear that, but I've never heard it in any other kind of negative way. A news story that came out yesterday is that councils, that's the local government in London, they're spending 90 million per month, 90 million pounds per month on temporary accommodation for homeless people. Now, for me, that sounds like an absolute fortune. They're spending a fortune looking after homeless people. It might be true that homeless people cost a fortune to look after, but apparently these figures are up by 40% from last year. Latest figures are suggesting that 1 in 50 people in London are homeless or living in temporary accommodation. And it's not just in London. Around here where I live as well, there's also a lot of homelessness. Now, I don't mean that they're begging on the streets. I think the government does a lot to help and support them. But effectively, they are still homeless. The local government has warned that if the central government doesn't do something, this could lead to bankruptcy. That means that the councils, the local governments, will run out of money. And at least one or two of those in central England have already said that they're bankrupt. They're saying that the latest figures mean that they'll have to spend a fortune on dealing with homeless people. It says that with more than 175,000 people in London thought to be in temporary accommodation, it's the same as 1 in 50. This figure includes 85,000 children, which says that at least one child in every London classroom and school is homeless. This data also suggests that the number of people reporting as homeless in London increased by 14.5% between 2022 and 2023. Now, it's very difficult to know how they're going to deal with this, but whatever way they do it, it's certainly going to cost them a fortune, and it won't be a small fortune. We never use this phrase to say, oh, it will be a big fortune, because fortune by itself is talking about how big something is. The central government has said we are giving councils over 1 billion through the homelessness prevention scheme, which they have, over 3 years, and 352 million for London between 2023 and 2025. It is indeed very interesting, and many people around the world often think that London is one of these cities where you go to make a lot of money. But that isn't really true, because many people who live in London are very, very poor. And they live just getting by, which means just surviving. And they know that if they win the lottery, they'll win a fortune, which they can then spend. They can spend a fortune buying property or doing other things. But the costs in London are so high that it's eye-watering. It's a small fortune to even rent accommodation. So if you are thinking of coming to London, you really need to think a lot about that. Bruno Mars has a song called Marry You. And in the lyrics of that song, he's trying to persuade a girl to go and marry him. And he's basically saying, I think I want to marry you. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's the look in your eyes or something else. But in that song, he says, who cares if we are trashed? Trashed just means if we are broke, if we really are in the gutter, if we have nothing else to do or nothing else to live for. He says, I've got a pocket full of cash we can blow. Now, when we talk about blowing cash, we often say, oh, he's going to blow a fortune. To blow. So earlier, I was telling you about spending a fortune, costing a fortune. So if you spend a fortune, you're basically blowing all the money you have. Now, this is American English, and we use it here too, but here we often talk about blowing our chances for that new job. If you blow your chances, it means you've got little chance of getting the job. So if you blow your money, blow your chances, it's a very hard thing, very hard thing. But anyway, to blow your fortune is another way to spend your fortune. And you can find it in this Bruno Mars song, which is called Marry You, when he says, I've got a pocket full of cash we can blow. So to blow a pocket full of cash, to blow your fortune, is just not to take care of it and to spend it on crazy things. Speaking of marriage and the verb to marry, there is another song that I like a lot. I prefer this song to the one by Bruno Mars. It's more traditional and it's from the 1970s. It doesn't talk about blowing a fortune or spending a lot of money. It just very innocently says, what are you doing Sunday, baby? And that's the name of the song. What are you doing Sunday, baby? And it's an invitation from a man to a woman that he hopes to marry. It's by Tony Orlando. What are you doing Sunday, baby? And he tells us, I hear some people get married in the park on Sunday afternoon, and all their friends bring pretty flowers while the band plays a happy tune. All very straightforward so far. And then he asks her, now, do you want me? Do you need me? Do you love me like I love you? And then he says again, what are you doing Sunday, baby? Would you like to marry me? What do you say now? If it's a nice day now, what are you doing Sunday, baby? Gee, I want to marry you. What are you doing Sunday afternoon? Now, these lyrics should all be very clear for you because they're very straightforward. This is a song called What Are You Doing Sunday, Baby by Tony Orlando. And then Tony says, maybe we should wait till night to join hands. That just means to hold hands or to unite. Beneath the stars above. And then he says, and we'll be kissing our first kiss by moonlight as we vow eternal love. To vow is to promise. Then he says, now, do you want me? Do you need me? Do you love me like I love you? And then he goes through the chorus again twice. And he's basically saying, what do you say now? If it's a nice day now, what are you doing Sunday, baby? I want to marry you. So that's going to cost Tony a little bit of money. He'll be spending a fortune, especially if he's arranging a marriage at short notice, I would think. It's a very interesting video that. He's with two women, and it's not really clear which one he's singing to. That video was made in a very famous place in London, near, I think it's near Shepherd's Bush. It's like a large country park. It's very nice. It's still there. And yeah, it's a beautiful place. So that's Tony Orlando and his backup singers with the song, What Are You Doing Sunday, Baby? It would indeed cost him a small fortune, I think, to try to arrange a marriage at short notice. Although there probably wouldn't be many guests, so he might not need to invite people to a big wedding party or wedding reception, as we call it, if it's just a very small affair. Would be a nice place to get married, that park. Um, but it's very strange because he's saying he hears that some people get married in the park on a Sunday afternoon. Well, up until very, very recently, British people were not allowed to marry on a Sunday. So maybe this song was designed for America. After all, Tony Orlando is American. So it's strange that he's inviting these ladies to marry him on a Sunday when he can't actually get married on a Sunday. This song was from the 1970s, but that's okay. I mean, it's a nice song, and Tony obviously is in love, but I can just imagine their faces when they discover that it's actually Monday afternoon or Saturday afternoon. They might have to change the song a little bit. Tuesday afternoon, I hear some people get married in the park on Tuesday afternoon. I wonder why he chose Sunday. Yeah, I think the songwriter might have been American, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, that's it from me. So don't spend a fortune today. Keep your money important. See you all. Take care. Bye.